Steve Whitman, Jack Scarborough, Bonnie Sears, Bridget Powers, myself, Rebecca Hansen, John Ranlett, Chris Buckley, Marianne Barnsley, and Brian Murphy. Next, we'll move on to the review of the minutes from July 5th. Any comments, edits, anything from the minutes from our work session earlier this month?
I see nothing.
It was a dense read this time.
Yeah, yeah, it was.
There were no food references.
Yeah.
It was a reference to magic, though.
That's true.
You guys change it up a little bit.
I like that.
I'd make a motion to accept these minutes.
A second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. Next up, we have two applications before us. The first is a boundary line adjustment between PID numbers 110-006 and number 110-006-001. The application will review a proposed boundary line adjustment between the two parcels which lie in the village commercial zone. Do we have a representative from this application?
And this is obviously the site plan application, so presently, this piece of this parcel, which combined is about 3/10 of an acre, presently, the boundary line between these runs right through here. So this is one lot, and then this is the other lot. They're owned by the same, it's under the same ownership, but they're separate deeds. I don't know if you want. This is live copies, if anybody wants to see. And as these two is to construct two apartment buildings similar to the one across the street. They wanted to make sure that they were each on their own parcel. In doing that, to make them fit, we would adjust the line from here up to here and make this the new boundary line, and then each of these buildings would then be on their own lot. And presently, there is it was an old freight building that runs almost the entire length of the lot, and that will be coming down. But for the boundary line adjustment, we simply want to move that line from here up to here.
That's the present building, if you want to,
Yes.
from the ZBA.
What's that?
I have the photo that you provided to the zoning board.
Okay. I get some more too. I didn't know we were doing the boundary line adjustment first.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
That'll look a lot better.
It's not me, it's them.
Yeah.
Any questions from the board about the completeness of this project? Or this application?
Of the application.
Of the application, yes.
Make a motion, we accept the application as complete.
I have just on the fee page, is that because this is a this is a boundary line adjustment, so a lot of those fees don't apply, and this is a two-part. I'm just not used to seeing on the second page,
Yeah, it's
all
kind
that, most of it's blank and not
Right.
checked off. Is that just because everything is?
yeah, it's all done. It's just, just in the matter of being more efficient. It was just the one, combined. It's
Yeah,
the same
that-
owner, same
okay.
project.
That's what I figured, but just making sure.
I'll second John's motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh. Anyone opposed? I just realized we're counting members right now, and Steve, we are at 7, so. Okay. All right, So, application is complete. Any questions about this proposal for the applicant? Okay, I'm going to open it up to a public hearing. I'll remind the public that this is just about the boundary line adjustment. We'll get to the site plan review pretty shortly, I imagine. So at 6:35, I am opening up the public hearing on this boundary line adjustment. Any comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, it's still 6:35, and I am closing the public hearing.
The lights dimmed when you hit the gavel.
Might have gone a little
Stop
overboard.
at that.
Put your fingers in
Yeah.
there.
All right, I'll bring it back to the board. Any comments, questions from the board on this seemingly straightforward boundary line adjustment?
I think it'll certainly facilitate improvement of the area.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Can I have a historical how did one building end up on two different uneven, how did that, like if there's two deeds and?
Not uncommon down here. These were all railroad properties, and originally, the railroad deeded, well, actually, they deeded it in several different parcels. Part of the building, it's this freight building was deeded first, then some land around it, and then they later deeded the remaining portion of that lot. And the railroad, sometimes they would deed around their buildings, and sometimes they would deed just the parcel that they took or that they acquired, and irregardless of where the buildings fell on. So, fortunately, over time, things are getting kind of straightened out. But
Make a motion, we approve the boundary line adjustment.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? So the boundary line adjustment is approved. Next up, hang on one second. Make sure I get rid of the right paper. Site plan approval on PID number 110-006 and 110-006-001 for the construction of two 6-unit apartment buildings, parking areas and related site improvements. The parcels lie in the village commercial zone.
Okay, and again, the existing freight building that's there, which is the gray, under kind of light gray building, with the loading dock, which goes out to the tracks, will be removed. And what they propose is to build two buildings, I guess exactly like the one that they have across the street. Six unit apartment buildings with the parking underneath, as shown on that photo. And there'll be, let's see, there's 12 parking spaces in each building in the basement, and then 4 on each side. I think the requirement is 30, and I think we've got 32 for parking spaces. And they'll be connected to town services. Both buildings will go out into the sewer manhole that's right in front of the building, and same one that actually came from, that services this building. One of the things that they're doing with this is presently up in this area, up to the street, up to Main Street, is a 4-inch water line. They are going to be required to replace that with an 8-inch line down to the hydrant here, an existing hydrant, and then they're going to run 6-inch down to the building. So it'll actually improve the firefighting capacity of this area down here. And we, as you probably saw, we did go to the zoning board to get a variance for the setback. We wanted to keep the building as closer to the back line and as far away from the street area as we could. As you probably know, right now, there isn't a dedicated street or anything down through there, and the hope is that sometime that will be laid out, and we wanted to make sure that there was as much area as there could be in the front for the street, the parking and plowing and things like that. The area in the front basically was more valuable than, anything in the back. And I have shown I've shown there's quite a series of tracks that went through there. This one is the main line, which is the only one that is still active. These are there mostly in part. Some of them have rails that are missing and gone, but those are no longer active. And that, of course, that area is controlled by the state of New Hampshire now. And the building will be, constructed, same lighting, same as the one across the street. And we have provided a dumpster location for both buildings in between.
All right, any questions from the board about the completeness of this application?
I, of course, have one, Madam Chair. And this may, well, on page 8, there's always this section, in addition to the items required above, the following items may also be required by the board. So when would the board ever decide when these following items would be worth considering?
I would say right now.
And I would just say that, and obviously this is, because the first one, a statement identifying the various goals and objectives of the town of Plymouth master plan, it seems like if someone was proposing a new project, particularly in light that we're developing this new master plan, that would be a pertinent consideration.
Yeah, so I think that, and this is sort of taking a step back, just thinking about when we require these things. We have a long history, at least in my tenure on the board, of approving applications the night we see them every time. And I think that we are under no obligation to do so. I think that this is, if we want one of these things for any reason that's reasonable, we can certainly ask for this before we make a decision on the proposal, so.
And I don't think it's reasonable right now. I think that would be something we'd have to discuss and let the applicant know ahead of time. Because this one almost seems like maybe it shouldn't be in this section, it would be, it seems like if we take this master plan seriously,
Yeah.
then it should be something that we use and we ask that applicants also consider. Does that make sense?
Yep. And I think in a case like this where we're dealing with, redevelopment of an existing development, it's a different story than something that's brand new. And so I think that's something worth considering, especially once we roll out with the master plan, that we want to be using it as much as possible and making sure,
One of the other key features of that is, if it's reflected as a permitted use in the zoning ordinance, you can pretty much believe that it follows the master plan because one's linked to the other. And we're in transition now, like you said, but I don't think that anything that's proposed in the new master plan is that much at odds with the existing one. So, I mean, the answer to that question would be yes, because it was vetted by the ZBA as a special exception use, which is a permitted use. So that pretty much indicates that at this point it is in compliance with the master plan.
Certainly the zoning aspect, and I guess I was thinking it could be a selling point for someone proposing a project because they could tie it in, here's all the ways. I mean, I think it would be something that would help people that are proposing a project, here's all the ways this would support the master plan.
And
And I don't
not-
think it would be a lot of work.
Right, not every time I mean, it could be that the board here could say, no, we take a different view of this, and we recommend that you go to the ZBA because of whatever, and that's where that would come in, because you're kind of the arbiters of how that actually works, as far as uses. So it may just be an inefficient way of saying that. But the chairman's correct, that in many cases, in many towns, they will never hear the proposal the same night that they're checked for completeness. So that's where it would kick in.
And again, when we're looking at like adequate stormwater drainage system, I mean, the area has been developed, and as Kevin mentioned, they have drainage and everything there for it, and
And actually, they improved those when they did the other development.
so that some of those questions were probably answered before.
Yeah, yeah. And presently, there's pavement right up to the building, so it's not, there isn't going to be an increase in impervious from what's there already. And at some point, if they ever do make that a street and, improve it, it would be very nice then to kind of connect all those things,
So that's kind of like, if it's not a street, it's kind of like a long driveway entrance in there.
Well, it's
No street lights, and I'm presuming it's intended for student housing. Is there a safety concern of,
Can we hold off on, before we jump too far into this, and just think about, if this is an issue of completeness, or if this is
Sorry.
something that we can discuss after we
right,
make a decision on whether the application is complete.
sorry.
So my motion stands to accept this
We didn't
application.
do that. We already accepted it as complete.
No, we
Okay,
did that
no,
on the
no, no.
last one.
No,
Okay.
we had a question.
Okay.
Nobody
okay.
seconded.
So there's a
Second.
motion, Jack, you seconded, and now we will vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Would the board like to ask some questions now, or shall I open it up for a public hearing?
I don't have a question, I just want to make a comment that it's going to improve the looks down there quite a bit. With that old building, it does need to come down, so I don't see anything wrong with it at all.
I mean, I'm sure the building served its purpose well in its time. But
Oh, yeah.
its time is, yeah.
Well, the use of the whole area has changed,
Yeah,
with the railroad being gone, so, it's adapted somewhat, and, it's the final purpose.
So there's no change in impervious surface. It's pretty much all impervious.
Right. Yeah.
Is there anything that can be done that can help manage stormwater a little bit, that could actually improve on the situation from where it is, instead of just keeping it at, net?
Well, I think the improvements they did before helped that area,
Okay.
greatly. And again, not to, I campaign for this every time I do one down on Railroad Street. Someday it'd be nice if the street was laid out and the whole, infrastructure could just be kind of planned as one. And what is done now is adequate for what's there. If the street was improved, if there were other improvements in other areas that could, that would help the whole area, so. I know that's, looking ahead, but I probably won't live long enough to see that road, but
Well,
anyway.
you never know, enough people talk about it, and
Yeah.
we get some
Yeah.
funding for it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, especially looking at maybe possible construction work that needs to be done. It's a viable bypass, so.
Again, it's off the topic, but the one thing about it now is most everybody down there is is in agreement on it. So, there's been times when there might have been, somebody that didn't want to do something, and so, and that's tough, because there's a lot of different owners. To go,
Exactly,
you have to deal with,
exactly.
so.
But I think all of them would benefit, plus the
Yeah,
town,
yeah.
so it's.
Other questions, comments?
I do, but it might,
Oh, lighting and safety.
Yeah, I guess I just don't have a clear vision of if it's not a street.
and here's a great example of, this probably would have been worth a site visit had we known, because it is an interesting area down there.
I'm just gonna say the same thing that I said the last.
Yeah.
That we
We could do
still do that.
that. Yeah, we could do that.
we
Bridget
can
and I
still-
almost did it on the way down here.
It's quick and easy.
I did it.
Is this student housing? Is,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think the question that Bridget raised is this not a street, so what kind of, are there safety lights for safety on the buildings, pedestrian conveyance, what kind of stuff like that provides for safety of the people who are living there? Is that kind of what you're asking, Bridget?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's all LED lighting in front, there are street lights there.
There's two more fire hydrants going in, it's all
Yeah.
sprinklered. It's
Yeah.
actually gonna be lighter down there for the building that's across the street already.
Kevin from KTM's also added additional lighting.
He used to get broken into all his cars down all the time.
There's
Now
cameras,
it's-
there's exterior and interior
Now
cameras.
that's lit up, it's getting safer.
The kids have been great, we've had no issues.
Thank you. Steve, I want to make sure if you have any questions or comments that we welcome your
As a non-voting
comments,
member?
but not your vote tonight.
No, I mean, I think that the stuff that's been raised is all valid, but I think that the town hasn't done what it needs to do in taking responsibility. And it's been talked about a lot over generations of town boards. And so I don't see anything that I feel is right to require these folks to do when we haven't kind of done what we need to do. And having been down through there at night, it's perfectly fine. I haven't heard any negative activity from the building that's there. So it seems like a legitimate redevelopment.
Frank's not here to ask, but what's the plan? That's part of Green Street, right? More or less, it's not on Green Street, but it's part of that.
Green Street's actually the one
Over here,
on the other
but
side of the
it,
track.
but isn't that planned for that whole section of Plymouth? Isn't there some kind of plan, is that what you were?
Depends who you talk to, yeah. I mean, nothing's moved forward.
Well, if I may,
Yeah.
a great stride was made towards that when Alex Ray acquired most of that property.
Like down by the
with-
skate
with the
park
monkey.
and-
Yes, because a huge part of that right-of-way snakes up through there, and it's all that one parcel. So it actually extends past here, doesn't it, Kevin?
What's that?
Alex's right-of-way extends past this building?
Yeah, actually, Alex comes up into this area up here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And he's on board with the idea as well. Though nothing official has been done, we've had numerous conversations about it since then. And actually, after the start of those conversations is when you built the building, I believe. And this is, just kind of a logical follow-through.
But there's no concrete plan for how to proceed or how to get the funds to do so, and it doesn't seem like we should hold these guys up.
Not at all, and I think it's
Right.
great taking down one of those dilapidated buildings and putting up something. My only concern, and I don't think, and this may not be the time to discuss this, but it seems like there's a possibility that that area could become student ghetto, student housing only. And that's maybe fine, maybe that's what we want, but I think as a planning board, we might want to think about is there a way to make that more mixed use, which I think would also benefit the student housing down there, so it's not just student housing. I mean, I think students do better when they're integrated in a community, when there's other things going on down there. And I just think, as a planning board, we might want to keep that somewhere on the back burner as we move forward. And maybe if there is a project that's being held up somewhere, or some kind of master plan for that area, that maybe we could spur getting that thing implemented.
Well, I will say that we still have a draft master plan with a transportation chapter, or a transportation implementation section that actually doesn't address that area in particular, so we could certainly add that as a recommendation this evening. And that seems like maybe that's something we want to do. I was going to say I didn't want to edit this too much for content, but maybe that's just something that comes up that we can put in there as a place marker for us to continue this conversation in the future. So.
And just to point out that, knowing that, the street issue was there, that was why we tried to push the buildings back, to give as much space there as we could, and because there has been talk about, bringing Green Street down and bringing it and connecting it into here somewhere. And I think the somewhere is still, moving around, so we wanted to, again, leave as much space as possible for that.
That's great.
All right, we need to open the public hearing, unless the board has any more questions. All right, it is 6:55. I am opening the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak about this project? Come on up.
Oh, I have to go up there.
You do.
And you're on camera.
Yeah. Please make sure you say your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Russ Harris. I'm a butter. I think it's a really good, I think their plan for down there is a really good idea. I've seen their apartments. They're really nice. And right now they might be intended for student use. But if I had an opportunity to, live down there, if I was older, it's certainly something that anybody could move into. They can walk right up to Plymouth, then go to Rite Aid, then go to Chase Street. Everything is right there. So, it might be student use right now, but it certainly does not have to be. They're very nice units. Joe and Eric do a great job of taking care of the property down there. The plowing, they just do a great job. I've never seen it as nice as I've seen it down there as I am now. I own or partial owner of an apartment, which will be adjacent to them, and my tenants are not students, and they're very fortunate. I got great tenants that have been there for a long time. It's going to be safer for the community. They're going to have sprinklers in these units versus the old warehouse that's there. That's been our warehouse. It's a nice old beautiful building, but for fire safety and stuff, these will be much more conducive for the area. And I would like to, see Kevin get his wish and have the town. Really, I think that's something you guys really need to think about. As far as, you need to get fire trucks down there. You need to get, ambulances down there, whatever. So I think it's a kind of a no-brainer for the town to, approve this application. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, it is 6:59. I am closing the public hearing, bringing it back to the board. Any further discussion, questions, etc.?
I'd just like to say I'm on the board of Haven Pregnancy Services, and we rent from the Harrises. We have for 11 or 12 years now, and they've been real good, taking care of their tenants, and they've been really good people in the community. So.
I would like to make a motion that we approve this.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Application is approved.
One more. I just wanted these.
All right. So with that, is everyone up for, since we've only sort of half an hour into this meeting, is everyone up for digging into the master plan and working on some edits together?
Yep.
Steve, I think you weren't here at the last meeting, but we all took away the edits, or the hard copy. Bill took this master plan that Polly did, put it into, he was somehow miraculously able to put it into Word, so we've maintained the design. And now we're just gonna kind of go through, everyone was editing it on their own, and then we're gonna just bring those edits.
Perfect.
Talk about them, so we're not, I'm gonna do the final round of churning through, making sure everything looks okay, but I just didn't wanna be looking at like 8 different copies. So, I think the first thing I did wanna say is, I don't wanna spend too much time rehashing this material. We've been going over again and again for 3 years. So, I think maybe we can agree on one thing we'll add to the transportation chapter perhaps, but other than that, I don't want to be debating whether or not something goes in here, because there was a lot of thought and discussion that went into pretty much every word in this document for the most part. So, so I'd like to try and avoid that as best we can. Okay.
Were we gonna go page by page? Is that summary page? And I think we can be fast.
Yep.
If someone has something.
First thing I wanted to ask is everyone, I find the font size large.
You find what?
I find the font is large.
I like it, but
Yeah,
there
yeah, when you get-
Well, the other
Depends on
thing is
who's
if you
looking
change
at
the
it.
font, is that gonna
It might
require
change
a
everything
lot
else, so,
more
yeah.
formatting
Yeah.
issues?
It might help with the online version.
Okay, all right, we'll leave it. I've already said it once, so I'll not say it again.
I don't like the style of font, though. Just kidding.
Bill pay you to say that? Right.
No, Bill did this.
Yeah.
He took away the
Bill
time.
did that because he wanted to control the
Yep,
font.
yep. I am willing to let go of the font because he did it.
Can I make, just, as we go through this, I don't have page numbers, so.
We're gonna have to just sort of hold up pages, because the page numbers come in and out.
Okay, so we could say
And that
summary
is something that is on the list to work on.
Okay.
And I think we do have an issue of, I don't know if it's the version of Word, or how it got PDF'd or something, but I'll be taking the Word version directly from Bill, who has a recent version of Word, as do I, and I will be editing that document and PDFing it.
The funny thing about that is it all appears clear on his. He has Word 2013, I think. Mine is 2010. So somewhere in there,
I have
it's when it shipped
2013,
it
so.
back. Okay, good.
Yeah, so we should be okay. So comments about the, where the captions are and things like that, we'll make sure those are fixed. Okay, so starting with the title page. I think we want to put 2018 on the cover, so it dates it. Anything else for the cover? Okay. Signature page and the table of contents, I will take care of both of those. How does everyone feel about the timeline? I think we envisioned an infographic. I don't find it super useful.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I think it's a little
Toss it.
sparse. Yeah.
The summary.
So not to rehash, but is this, the summary and the why is a master plan important appear to be fairly similar?
Yep.
I don't know if that was design or not.
We intentionally put in a summary just to kind of cover everything. I don't know, Jack, you wrote that. Do you have a better explanation for than what I just said?
It was just a recapitulation of the entire document.
Yeah.
Just an introduction for the public who would
Sure.
review it.
It just is that, you know, you turn to the next page and it's the same thing as the why is a master plan important. It's
And
word for
that
word.
was purely the format that was laid out, and I tried to explain that as well.
What about just taking out that, why is the master plan important? just
You could
begin
have
with what
public
is a master
questions.
plan?
Why is a master plan important?
Say-
did we
say
waste-
that
why did we
question in
waste
that
3 years?
conversation. Somewhat.
You know, it would be.
Well, it seems like one should go, either the summary or the why is a master plan important, as opposed to rewriting one of them.
I would get rid of the why is a master plan important, because underneath that, you have what is in this master plan and
Right.
what the master plan is.
Okay.
It seems to, and I think that you did a nice job in the summary covering some of that too, so.
All right, is everyone good with that?
So we're getting rid of that.
Yep.
And it's a short section to lose, but.
It might not change the page count, but that's okay.
And it also has a problem in it, so we know you have to go over that.
Okay,
So any captions that the wording is funky or?
don't worry about that.
Okay.
I'll make sure,
Just floating.
yep. Yeah, I'm not, it's a mystery, but I'll dig into it.
Unless you see like a mistitle, or if there's something clearly
If you
wrong
aren't
with the
able-
content.
Right,
but
right.
the-
Like, we're showing something that's
The
actually not
spacing,
in
yeah.
the town of Plymouth.
If we could word it better, something like that.
All right, so on to the page that starts chapter 1, vision.
That location, I
Yep.
think you already
Got
have.
that, the last bullet point, excellent educational system or excellent education system?
Education.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Anything else on that first page? Next page, we've crossed out why is a master plan important? What is in this master plan? Anything? What the master plan is? I think in the first bullet point, it should read, the master plan is a collection of plans, maps, studies, and reports which together visualize how the community instead of attempts to.
Okay.
I just like a slightly more active,
Right.
confident voice. Anything else on this page? All right. I'm trying not to sound like an auctioneer.
But I think that's the way to go, is there?
absolutely.
If we have something, immediately say it, because there's a lot of pages here.
70.
What the master plan is not. Anything in those bullets. And I will say, as I said, bullets, I'm gonna make sure the bullets and all those things are consistent throughout, because I'm seeing some different spacing in amongst the bullets, so I'm gonna make sure those are all the same. The margins, things like that, so those, because there's some bleed over into the green and stuff like that, so. Okay, how to use this plan. I struck at the second to last sentence, it starts with occasionally, I think I added state court decisions. And then I struck that whole aside or parenthetical, because I don't think we necessarily need to, I think we could just leave it out. So, those recent state decisions are gonna become less relevant as we get, 5 or 6 years into this process, I don't know. It's, might be slightly nitpicky, but, yeah. Is everyone okay with that?
Fine with that.
Good.
Okay. Top of the next page, the capital improvement programs, process that was started, I said, in Plymouth in 1987. It seems, I'm assuming that's what that means, not just in general, so I think it's important to distinguish that we're talking about Plymouth there. Anything else in that paragraph?
I'm curious about use of Plymouth, because it is the Plymouth master plan.
It's true.
Wouldn't that be redundant?
I think that it could mean that the capital improvements, I don't know. It makes
CIP
it sound like
started in
yeah,
the
the whole,
80s.
yeah.
Right.
So it's distinguishing between like a statewide thing that happened in 1987 versus something that we adopted in the town of Plymouth.
Okay.
That was my thought. Does that work?
Fine.
2018 update the master plan. I swear I don't have this much on every page. How to address with the help of North Country Council, the Regional Planning Commission, which no longer includes Plymouth. I'm not really sure how we want to
Right, I was
address
thinking about that too.
So,
I think get rid of the parenthetical. and
Right,
just
right,
leave it.
agree.
Yeah.
is that fine? All right.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, anything else?
Goes away.
All right, moving on. Jack, I still haven't gotten an email with a picture to replace the Allwell South. We were gonna put Bonnie's picture in there, the Allwell South. It's just
Okay.
actually not even, it's not.
I will send you those.
Okay.
I have, on that page, there's, where it says strategies and recommendations for, it's
Oh.
got consideration, it's got a
Space.
space there, it
Good
just,
catch.
Oh, yeah. I found a lot of those, so the more, if we can point
Yeah,
those
yeah.
out, I think that will be better. I struck the word aforementioned. That was ridiculous. Is that okay? Yes. In the second bullet point, third bullet point, compare the aforementioned recommendations.
What does that refer to?
It was what was confusing to me that, I think they're talking about, wasn't totally sure.
Because does that mean, were there some recommendations mentioned earlier in this document, or is that from the last master plan?
It was from
Sounds
a
like it's talking
series
about
of
the last master
studies-
plan.
Studies, recommendations, surveys, public input.
That North Country Council helped us with. Yeah.
So I think there needs to be some descriptive in there. It may not be aforementioned, but something, I don't think it can just be compare the recommendations, because what?
About compare suggested recommendations with those from the existing Plymouth master plan. Because there were things, as Jack said, that came out of the survey and forums.
I like that. That clears it up to me.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, we good on that page? The next page was a little hard to read. Anything on that?
no, just that the things, the wording should be below the
Yeah,
pictures,
we'll
but you
I'll
already
fix-
know that.
I will definitely fix that.
Yeah.
The next page with the overlapping circles, I think we were going for some infographics. To me, this doesn't really highlight it, so I think I think it was a good attempt, but it was hard for me to articulate what we wanted, and then I think it was hard for Polly to implement that. So I would say at this point, let's just,
Pull it.
yeah, that's what I think, so. Unless anyone's really partial to the three circles overlapping.
Well, there should be a title in the overlap, if anything.
Yeah.
Right,
For true
right,
diagram.
right, right.
Plymouth.
Yeah, well, essentially, that would have to be.
All right, I'm just gonna cross it off.
Yep.
All right, next page. Oh, I just saw this. The full results of this survey is included as an appendix to this master plan. How about they're gonna be on on the town website? Does that work?
That's good.
We've determined that that's where the appendix is going to live, is online.
Yeah, and it might not be, just be supporting documents,
Yeah.
I think it's more, instead of calling it an appendix. Anything else on this page? I just have some typos that I don't think I need to bring,
We on regional context page?
yes, sorry, yep.
I just had a question on this. It's got like map one, they're talking about, the Lakes region, blah, 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 blah. And what is this map here? It doesn't have a number on it. Is this what they're talking about? Because the next page, or wherever the next map is actually map one.
Okay.
But this looks like should be talking about this one here that is not numbered map anything.
All right, so that brings up a question, because the rest of the maps are on different chapters. So how do we want the maps to be displayed? Do we want them at the end of everything? Do we want the end of each chapter? Do we want them, I think they're to me, they're a little tough in the document. I think I would rather see them at the end of chapter 1. We could have this one map, and this could be map 1.1, because it's chapter 1. And then,
I don't know, when I was looking at this, my habit was to go from here to here.
Right, right.
Right.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
it shows what the region is
Right.
without saying anything.
But Bonnie's point is well taken. It's
Yeah, it's
map
identif-
one displays, but this isn't identified as map one.
Right, it's down in the text box there, but it should be bigger. It just says Plymouth Regional Service Area marked in yellow, but
Yeah,
that should
can
be
you
a
just
header.
Call
across
it
the
that?
top.
Call it the map name that's in the legend?
Unless you want to change all the rest,
Right, all the
because
rest.
the,
Right.
Well,
The
so
next
then
is
there's
with
the
the
other
number.
question is, I do like this one here, do we want to, but then when I got into chapter 2,
This is map
and this is skipping ahead a little bit, we've got this, a whole bunch of text intermixed with 5 pages of maps.
Right.
Does it make sense to push all those maps to the end? So all the maps are together, or do we like having the interrupted? Because I can renumber the maps.
Previous discussion had been centered around all of the maps being consolidated in one location.
Okay.
So what I did was intersperse the map to correspond with the text. So as you're reading along,
Right.
you'll look over, you'll see the map.
yeah.
So I,
What does everyone
we're, it sounds like we're going back.
I think,
Well-
I think
We'll leave it as it is.
putting them in with the text.
Yeah, because if I'm reading something, that's
Because you
exactly what I
reference it as
would
you're
do.
reading.
Right, and then you're flipping and you're
Yeah.
going back and back and
I
back.
might not make the effort to go look for the map.
Right.
I always find it a pain when, because, the maps take up a lot of space, so figure 1A is right there, but when you get to 3B, you got to page forward 3 more pages before you get to that
Yep,
particular.
we're gonna end
one.
up with that anyway, just
Yeah.
with the number of with the number of maps, which is why I brought that up, but, yeah, but we wanna leave the maps the way they are. Yes, okay.
Except for the numbers.
I'll fix the numbers, yep.
Okay.
And all these maps I would like to make available separate from the master plan on the website as well, so, because they're really nice looking maps. All right, so this wraps up the, the one thing I was gonna change, that they participate in the
Right.
planning efforts of the Lakes Region Planning Commission.
And I think the directions, the Lakes region to the south, Swan Lake is pretty much to our east, so I think it should say the Lakes region to our south and east, and just the White Mountains to our north.
Which paragraph is that in?
It's on the,
So-
that second paragraph all by itself. The Lakes region to the south and the White Mountains to the north and east.
I think if you
Well-
include Newfound,
Yeah, I was going to say,
it's
if you include Newfound, it's to
the
the
whole
south.
region.
That's the whole region. Newfound is the start of the Lakes region.
How about just the Lakes region and the White Mountains
Yeah,
and not
that
give the
works.
directions?
Yep.
Or that, because it's,
fine.
yeah.
like
I mean,
that.
and you don't have to put the east, but the thing that, the White Mountains to the north and east, I think that east should definitely be.
We could say the Lakes region to the west, south, and east.
Never to the north.
Kind of north.
Should we
Yeah.
even give the direction? or
Right,
Yeah,
just
I
say-
just struck those, so those came right out. And then we'll get a map number on there.
Compass on the
And I
map.
see you have the paragraph breaks marked on your,
Yep, I have those. Yeah, there's a lot, I think that's partly the way it got imported, so,
And, I'm sorry, but are we scratching the last sentence about North Country Council? or
we're gonna
we
change that to
it
the Lakes Region
Lakes
Planning Commission, yep. This is all a test to see what kind of attention to detail everyone has. Okay, already into chapter 2.
boom.
I have one on the land use planning can help Plymouth reach. Shouldn't there be a "the" in there, the
Yeah.
following goals, instead of just reach goals, following, or whatever?
I think you're right.
And the same thing with number 3, protect the natural environment, because the other ones have.
Okay, and dealing with space, because this, I think we can consolidate this a little bit. All right, on the next page that has the existing land use patterns.
The respondents were generally supportive of the development restrictions related to the protection of natural resources. Should there be an of
Yeah.
in there, am I?
I think you win with the attention to detail. Thank you.
Oh, and the only other one I found at the bottom of the page, it says land cover data sets from 2012 and 2002, shouldn't the 2002 be first and then the 2012? Or does that matter? But
I-
just,
Probably should be chronologically.
Right.
Okay. Guessing it was like that because, the 2012 is more recent, but yeah, okay. I just make a note to refer to the table in that, if we've got a table in there, we should refer to it in the text, I think. I guess we do in the next page. All right, the page with table 1 on it. Just a couple typos, capital letters where there shouldn't be. Anything else on that page? All right, now on to page 18, because it's got a page number on
it
it.
does.
Oh, yeah, very good.
I was suggesting maybe rotating the map, so we can make it a little bigger on the page.
Well, the text,
Oh, yeah, you can't.
it would be nice
it's
if
very
that was
small.
bigger.
Go
I-
landscape rather than portrait.
Yep. I mean, I'll keep the map 1 in the same orientation, but just turn the,
And this is called map 1.
yep.
Right, and it should be 2.
How would that display?
'Cause I
in the
have it.
Digital version?
That's what's weird.
Oh, and the digital
yeah.
version, that's a good point. Yeah.
You didn't share it, huh?
I don't know, this might
I would
be
keep it this
an
way, 'cause
older
the digital
iteration.
version, which is
Because
what a
all
lot
my
of people use,
titles
so
are
you
in the
can
right spot.
Yep,
Zoom in.
yep, and then we'll also have the other, maybe higher resolution as PDFs on there, so.
And maybe, this is all one thing, right? So I was thinking you
I
could
can't make that
just
bigger.
reproduce that and erase that, but you can't change that at all.
We shouldn't, no, we shouldn't take it out either.
And you'll have, if you have the maps listed elsewhere on the website,
Right.
we can get a bigger one.
Yep. And I can even add language in each map that, like, high-resolution maps are available on the town website.
Website.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a nice map.
I don't think we can possibly get the resolution we need, even if I were to rotate it, I still don't think it's gonna look great. I mean, it looks nice, but it's not gonna be,
Actually, Brian has one that's
Yeah,
already
it would look like
rotated.
that.
right. So the problem is digital version.
Right, no, I mean,
Yeah.
this was the one that was blown up, so it
Okay.
looks, but if it was actually, enhanced,
Yeah.
because it falls right, all of my maps are like that, so I don't know why I'm special.
We know why you're special.
We have to explain it,
I like to hear it.
one at a time.
All right.
You might put that note down here, maps 2 through 5, instead of noting it on every page.
Yeah, okay, yep. Maps 2 through 5 are for illustrative purposes. Available. Okay. The page, which I believe is page 19, even though there's no number on it, the current land use regulations.
So, many times we use the town of Plymouth, capital T for town. Not sure it's supposed to be capital T, not to be picky, but it's throughout.
Do we want to come in agreement? I would love to just leave it the way it is.
All
Yeah,
right,
well,
fine.
Just to not deal with it, however, I
As
think,
long as it's consistent.
It's not consistent, so sometimes it's lowercase, most times it's uppercase.
okay, I think when it's the town, we're using it as capital.
Correct.
Yeah.
The town of Plymouth,
Okay.
throwing it out there.
I think the
My
capital T in the
attention to
town of
detail.
Plymouth.
That's a point.
Thank you.
Everyone gets points tonight, I think. Steve, having been
It's
involved
very
in,
common to have it capitalized. It's also very common to fight about whether it should be capitalized.
I did the quick Google,
Yeah.
and so the answer was lowercase, but I don't think it matters a whole lot, just.
I mean, I'll do my best to sort of make it consistent, but I'm not gonna get hung up on it.
but if the actual name of the town of Plymouth is the town of Plymouth, that would throw it into the proper,
That
wouldn't it?
hurt. That's not much to think of.
Okay.
I use it all
Moving
the
on.
time.
So
with
would it be
capital T.
town of Plymouth? Would that be?
Yes,
Just checking.
it gets very meta.
Okay, so, flipping through the maps, will get renumbered. What does everyone think? Do we want to have the high-resolution maps are available on the town website in every map title? Do you think that's handy, or do you just put it in the? What do we
Whatever's
think?
easier.
Okay, right.
To your point, if someone wants to look at the airport overlay zone specifically,
Right.
yeah,
Yep.
So on the bottom of this page, we're changing all the numbers of the maps. So in other words, this note that says maps 2 through 5, that will, of course, also be changed, right?
The numbers.
Yeah.
Was there something wrong with the numbers? No, I'm just kidding. Yes, I've circled all of them.
I was beginning to think I was loony.
Thank you.
So why, you might have just said this, but why, how come this map is so big and, like, is that where you were envisioning?
I think it's because these are landscape,
They have insets,
landscape
yeah,
view. Yeah,
to accommodate that inset.
yeah. Because the airport overlay zone is the most important map in here.
Now, that's also on the website currently because it appears in the zoning ordinance.
Right.
So, and it's in black and white, even though it's a copy of a copy of a copy of a hand-drawn map. It's still clearer than this because the scale is bigger.
Oh, yeah, I think your maps are probably, the blurry maps?
Yeah, but even so, I mean, there's a lot of data in all these concentric zones that isn't really expressed very well there. And, I mean, for these purposes, yeah, I mean, it shouldn't really matter.
Our map is much clearer than yours right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's just the tiny scale of it is what,
Yep.
because there's 4 zones there in that middle triangle that you really can't see.
Why is there 0 minimum lot area in the village commercial?
Because it started in 1600s and zoning came in the 1960s. That's my best answer. It's the most developed area of town.
It's where you want the density.
Right? So we could put up lots of teeny things?
Good.
Okay, so I have trouble with the headings of this section.
Yeah.
And then they switched to bullets, so
Yep.
I'm ready to move to, or I've struck the bullets, but zones, it goes zones, land use regulations, then dimensional requirements. But I don't feel like anything beyond the first paragraph in dimensional requirements actually talks about dimensional requirements. So I'm not quite sure what to do about some of these headings in here.
I'm not, where are you? What page?
I'm on page 19.
Which
is
I wonder, I don't know
24.
what's going on.
24, right? Oh,
I'm on page, starting on 19, moving to 20.
oh, through the maps.
Yeah.
I would disagree that with the dimension requirements, the second paragraph, it talks about density, which is really a result of dimensional
Okay,
requirements.
that makes sense. I just needed someone to explain that to me. So I'll just remove the bullets.
Okay.
And then we start numbering things. And I honestly have no idea if this is something we did, if North Country Council did it, if this got translated to Polly this way. So we've got this interest where there's been a lot of cooks in this kitchen and a lot of people who use different bullet points, I think, is what we got going
Just
on.
gonna drop the numbers?
The numbers are the different zones.
So I don't know if we need a separate heading that just says zones, or are they, because these aren't actually, I mean, some of them are our zones, but
Yeah,
it's like, they're
and
not
then
really the names of our
recreational is
zones.
not. Right.
'Cause, yeah, they're
Right,
not
6
really,
is not a zone.
6,
we don't have a
Numbers-
recreational zone,
yeah,
we don't have a
numbers-
straight up industrial zone.
so it's a use.
It's a use, okay. Thank you.
So there's zones or uses?
Uses. So we need would you suggest having a heading that says uses there, or just?
Or just for the recreational one, say recreational uses. I don't know that anyone's gonna care if they go from commercial zone to recreational uses.
Okay.
'Cause the text, I think, covers
Okay.
what.
Okay.
If only people looked that carefully.
Take out the numbers.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, numbers gone.
But if you feel you need to explain why it's agricultural,
Okay. All right, great.
Yeah, but I mean, it talks about the uses, and then in the text, it talks about the zone. So
Right.
it should just be like the uses by heading, I think.
Okay.
Because the zones don't really align with,
Right. Okay.
as headings are.
Right.
I mean,
All right, so we've skipped through a lot of things, but let's go back to page, there's no longer, 24.
Which is what's
The one that starts with the 2 bullets, with the bullets land use regulations is the one right after the maps.
Okay, yep.
I don't have anything on either of these, on that page. Anyone? What's a truck gardening operation? Does anyone know?
is that like Owens?
Yeah, it's like Owens, the stuff is brought in, right? Like from other places. That's all.
Truck farm.
Truck farm, yeah.
it's usually
Trucked in.
proximate to
They grow trucks.
a city or
Or Green
town.
Acres, out by the airport.
Like they have a farmer's market in
Farmer's market.
Concord down there. Right by the-
All right.
Farmers market downtown here.
Yeah, they do.
All right. Anyone mind if we strike, so we'll leave the truck gardening operation, that makes sense to most people. So, that's fine. I don't know why small farms are in half quotes, the small farms at the end of that paragraph. Small,
Oh, yeah.
not even a full quote, but half quote. I'm just gonna say let's strike the
I
quotes.
would say too. It's sort of demoralizing those
Yeah.
small farms.
Not even giving them like a full double quote, just a
Right.
single
Not
quote.
really a farm.
Right.
All right, so another comment I had that we are, we switch between pretty much only on the Mayhew Turnpike, 3A and Mayhew Turnpike, where there's other roads, I think we're, any comments about making sure that's clear, 3A versus the Mayhew Turnpike, or should we define it once?
Where are we?
Oh, sorry,
The next page?
Yeah.
Yeah,
with the number 2 residential.
yeah.
I had something above residential. I don't know really where you're at.
We're
Oh,
above
right here.
residential. but it
Okay,
doesn't
so,
matter.
right, okay.
What do you got? Or did we answer your question?
No
about
one answered my
All right,
question.
let's answer your question first. What is it?
Do we, like, Mayhew Turnpike, what do we call that road? Mayhew Turnpike, 3A. We're using it interchangeably, but is that okay? If it's okay, we'll just leave it.
Yeah,
Alright,
because
great.
if we do it there, we have Route 3, Main Street, and Daniel Webster Turnpike on the other side.
Yeah. All right, I just won't change it, so if it says 3A, we'll leave it as 3A. Great, okay. All right, what was your thing, Bonnie?
Where it says these types of developments do occur in parks, there should be an of there, I think, in
Yep.
parks of the agricultural zone.
Yep, you're good with the thes and the ofs.
I'm telling you, I'm not good at much, but I guess those are my thing.
You're a good editor.
Yeah, that's great, yeah. I would rather have the question, those fixed and not worry about all the other stuff that I keep finding.
And if for some reason, this sounds strange on my ear, the last sentence in that same paragraph, while the terrain, lack of water, and blah, blah, blah. Land in these uses, should it be land in this zone? Because they're talking about the agricultural zone. Land in these uses just sounds weird to me. How can land be in these uses? Or lands used this way, or it seems like it needs to be reworded.
You're right.
Lands in this use.
Land in the agricultural zone, land in agricultural use.
I would just say land in the agricultural zone. It seems to be what it's talking about.
It says it'll continue to have development pressure, residential development pressure, right?
Yeah, we'll continue to face pressure for residential, and that paragraph is talking about the agricultural zone.
Right.
But just, and this land will likely continue to face pressure.
Or just
land is
substitute
big.
agricultural for these.
Well, you're also talking about agriculture and forestry uses, which are separate. So these uses,
These zones?
You're talking about A zone, agricultural
a
zone.
zone, but
Yeah.
these uses.
Remember, we just talked about changing this to uses, not zones for all these headings, so.
Can you say that, though? Land in these uses?
If you're clear about what you're referring
If
to.
you're clear about referring to forestry as one use and farming agriculture as another use, they are separate, they are plural, these uses.
But this paragraph is totally about the zone.
How about just say those lands will likely to continue, because it has forestry and agriculture just prior to the comma.
Okay.
Idea, Brian.
Sorry, so we want to say those lands?
After the comma,
Right.
those lands.
Use strategy to encourage forest and agricultural.
Yeah, these lands.
Those
will-
lands,
Like,
Okay. All right, anything else in that paragraph? Moving on. Page 27. Page 28 with a 3 that I've crossed out and commercial on the top.
I just found one, and it might not be right. It's right at the beginning, the major considerations of commercial uses in the town of Plymouth should that be are is?
concentrations are.
Concentrations are.
Okay. That's why I put a question mark there, I wasn't sure. It's just the way I speak sometimes. I probably don't say it like I'm supposed to.
Better to flag it and ask.
In the last paragraph on that page, commercial uses in this area, not areas.
Page, no, I can't see what it says. Has civic and institutional in the middle of the page.
29.
Yeah, that would be 29.
The next page.
Okay, anything on that page?
I have something, but I'm gonna have to reread it to figure out what I was talking about. It's in the second paragraph, areas, it's the second sentence in that paragraph. Areas, I'll read the first one though, for me. Areas of less concentrated commercial areas also exist in Plymouth. These include commercial uses located in the northeast corner of Plymouth along Route 3, scattered along, yeah, there seems to be,
It's a list, the northeast corner, scattered along Highland Street, along 3A,
Right.
and
Traffic circle.
Tenny Mountain.
these include commercial.
I think it reads fine.
Yeah.
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 It's
I'm okay
it's
with
awkward because it's long.
Right.
And the scattered. Perhaps switching along 3A, the two, because the scattered one is the one that's a little
I think they're-
confusing.
yeah,
And
maybe-
scattered along Highland Street?
Yeah,
at the
scattered, if
end?
you got rid of scattered, it would still,
How about just,
along Highland Street.
Flip-flop the two
agree.
locations in the list.
And I don't think, and those shouldn't be semicolons, those should
Right.
be commas.
it's a hard one to, make sure I remember to do that correctly. All right, anything else on that page?
We'll be checking you on it.
Yeah.
Bonnie will anyway.
Yeah.
What's that?
All the thes and ofs and important words to make things actually understand, totally readable.
I would have put that as capital.
We no longer have the Penny Baker Academy, is that right?
We no longer have the Penny Baker Academy.
Town.
Anything else on the page with the industrial in the middle of the page? There's an airport, a relatively new airport plan, correct?
Yes.
All right, so I think we should maybe mention that when we talk about the airport. There's an airport plan.
It's an airport master plan, right, Brian?
Yes.
That's what it's called?
All right, I'll add a sentence about the existence of the airport master plan on that page. Okay. On to the page with recreational now uses.
Sorry, there's an extra space in there, I think, between 49 and bed.
Thank you. Anything on that page?
Not for me.
All right, on the page with the recreation map.
I have one. It's the one that talks about barrier that connects between downtown and the Fairgrounds Road. Fairgrounds is spelt wrong.
Yep. Do we want these, every other map has been on its own page. Do we want these maps to be on their own pages? Or do we
Yeah,
care?
makes them a little bit bigger.
Okay.
If you
Yep.
can.
All right. Moving on, did you want to look over my, I didn't realize you, okay, all right.
Oh, you should.
This must be thrilling for you then.
He's just hoping we get through it.
Yeah.
I looked at some of it online, so, you know, a lot of what you're doing is.
Yep. Okay, so onto the page with future land development potential. Anything there? On that map, we'll put on its own page.
You're gonna have to remove below from
Yep.
map 7 if you do
Yep.
that.
This map.
So the next page, Tenny Mountain Highway, most promising area of Plymouth. That first sentence is just weird to me. Most promising area of Plymouth with regards to development potential.
Is
But
that,
it actually is the,
The area with the most developmental potential?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Can you
exactly.
just reword it
because
that way? Get rid of the
you look at
promise.
it-
Yeah.
You look at every other area, I mean, it's pretty well, I mean, you can change, just like you're taking the freight warehouse and putting in an apartment. But as far as commercial, I mean, that's the corridor to open up.
Yep, no, I agree with the concept, I
Yeah.
find the
The
phrasing
wording
of it
is-
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
is awkward enough to make me say, bring it up.
Started with width?
The area with the most or,
Well, I mean, if you said, with regards to development potential, there's.
I was gonna say, the
word is
general region
general
bounded by
region.
Tenny Mountain Highway to the north, I don't know.
I think if we sat down.
It's
with
possible
it-
that I might just leave it. I don't feel like rewriting
It's not
it.
terrible.
All right,
It's
we're
not-
leaving
Oh, it's
it.
great, it's promising.
The only way to fix it is to move it to the end.
Yep,
So,
That's not the,
it's fine.
No, it is.
Now, maybe I didn't read this whole page enough, but on the last paragraph, second to last sentence, it talks about Area 1. Does anyone know what Area 1 is?
know where the UFOs are?
that's 50 spaces later.
Yeah,
Go on, yeah.
It was the first place the aliens visited.
That must refer back to the map,
Right.
but there's no
Every
numbers
town
on
probably
that.
has their alien.
How about we just cross out in Area 1,
Yeah.
and then we're good?
Yeah. Yeah. I read that and I had no idea, but I thought, must be somebody
Yeah.
knows what it is. I don't know.
Yep.
Need to know.
Now we've confirmed.
Tara
that.
knows.
Okay, anything else on the page that starts with Mayhew Turnpike?
Mayhew Turnpike.
Anything on the following page?
on my page?
Oh. That's great. Thank you. I just said that maybe we should call it the New Hampshire Electrical Co-op, or Electric Co-op. I'll look up the right way to say that. Typos, anything else on this is the page with the areas of future development demand at the bottom of the page, but looking at the whole page. Anything? Okay. Page with Tenny Mountain Highway, oh, page 37. Oh, look, they have page.
Yeah, we got a page number.
You know where we are.
I've got nothing on there.
I have in single-family residential area, that chunk of text, the second paragraph, single-family neighborhoods may experience increased demand for multifamily conversion.
Yes.
Good. And I think that these are all supposed to be one paragraph,
Yeah, it would make sense.
so I have that noted in here. All right, page 38. Now up on page 39.
All right, on page 37, did you note that other areas is all caps?
Oh, yeah, look at that. Does it, so, this is where I think it's with the rest of the, because it's like future land use development and potential. Okay, yeah, so that should be lowercase, that makes sense. So I think what's happening here, and I think this is a North Country Council thing, is there is a future land use development potential section, and before that, there is a, oh my gosh. Areas of future development demand section, and then other areas which weren't discussed with those. So I think that's following with that, and then listing those areas that weren't discussed before.
Should that just be dropped down to under downtown then?
I think downtown, Tenny Mountain Highway, central portion, Quincy Road, other rural residential and less suitable areas are all the other areas that weren't discussed as areas of future development demand and future land use development potential. Does that make sense? Yep. Okay. That's how I'm understanding it. All right, we're good with that. Now, in the Do we want to strike the pages of the general land use recommendations? We did that in all the, I believe, in the data book. We struck all the,
We did.
yeah. Just because we have them, you know, if you just turn the page, there's, you know, like 30 pages of recommendations. And really, I feel like we're highlighting just one section. This is on page 40.
Because you're saying they can go right to the implementation table and.
Yep.
So that whole page gone?
So, yeah, 40 and
pages.
41 is gone.
And just to go back to that page I gave you of mine, where we said that this area here is the best, most prime for
Yep.
development, you've got this much larger yellow area right here next to it.
Okay.
So is that really true?
You're saying like the Tenny Mountain area?
Yeah.
I think it has more constraints though.
The yellow is the mountain.
With some or few development limitations and direct access to state highways.
The mountain with 15% to 25% grade that you cannot develop on.
I think what the page that you get, so the page, when it says the most promising area.
Yeah.
I think it covers that as well. I think they just grabbed a chunk of it, so. I'm not really sure how to address that. I'm okay just, this area, so there's an area towards,
It could be that southern little section on the east side of Tenny Mountain Highway, the little yellow section.
I mean, they just grabbed, North Country Council just grabbed everything from just north of the last chair all the way
Yep.
down.
yep,
Yep.
and then to the
Not knowing
border.
that it's all not equal,
Yeah.
but it's fine, because it is slated for development.
Well, and the National Guard just bought the chunk over here to put a new armory in.
Where did they buy it?
Yeah.
Little square
Between
block
the last chair and
between the last chair.
Oh,
and
they
the mountain.
did
Oh,
buy
really?
that?
Yep.
The old restaurant down there.
The yellow
They
chunk.
bought
They
it,
didn't buy the
I know what
2
you're
acre parcel
talking
with the
about. I know
restaurant
exactly
on
where
it.
it is.
Now?
Oh, they did?
State.
Ah, yeah.
they
So
bought
state
it,
bought it.
but we are
It goes in the tax
actively
dollars.
pursuing with the adjutant. The town has 69 acres over by the airport. It is already flat, level. They land the Chinooks at the airport now and transport the munitions and stuff. So we are trying to put together a package right now where they would give, in exchange for the 69 acres, they would give us the 54 acres and the old armory.
Huh.
So move
So this
highway
is,
to.
this
move
is,
highway to-
this is in process. We didn't know anything about it. It came up.
Right.
Paul was in Washington and heard that it was bought. The state didn't come in and say, hey, what do we have? But, I mean, for them to use that property, they're gonna have to do a lot of excavation and stuff. This property over here was already at one point cleared for a north-south runway. So, I mean, it's much more advantageous for them. I mean, they could actually use that old runway area to land the Chinooks, and it's more multi-use. So we're working with Senator Gaida, the adjutant, and working with the state. You know, we'll give you 69 for the 54 and this, and, you know, I think the adjutant was at the select board meeting, and so I think it has a real good chance, because the state didn't come in and say anything to anybody in the town or anything. They just came up, it was for sale, 54 acres, great, you know, 54 acres like this. You
Covered in
put it up at
boulders.
the top, it's gonna roll all the way down into 3A, you know, so, I mean, it really makes sense, and we talked to the adjutant about it. There's a letter being processed now, so we're hoping that is, I mean, I think we got a real good chance.
So that, you said that the Armory was gonna give us their old Armory?
No, that was not decided, and when we found out they bought the 54,
Yeah.
you know, then we said, well, what about the old armory?
Yeah.
And in some cases, and it wasn't in this, in some cases, when things were designated for that use, there was a stipulation in there that when the use changed or when they were through with it, it reverted back to the previous owner, which would have been the town. This particular section did not have that in there. So what they were gonna do with the armory was kinda up in the air, and, you know, it is a great commercial area. We're gonna give you 69 acres, and we could always slip in, you know, do something with the...
What's on the 69 acres right now?
Nothing.
No, I mean, like, is it field, is it?
It's forest.
Yeah.
It's right across
Right on the
from
circle.
the airport now. Take
Oh.
the
Right across from the airport.
length of the runway
Yeah, yeah.
and go across the street, and
It was
it's all that.
logged,
yeah.
logged
all that
5
land
years
over
ago
there.
or something by
Yes,
the
yes,
town.
yes.
That's
Yeah.
where the blueberries are.
Well, actually, that was
Blueberries along
to
the
protect
road.
the approach to the runway.
Was it,
Pick,
the logging?
you pick your
So
own
this
along
has
the road
been-
instead of going
It
down the
looks like a
road.
lot of,
But anyways.
I guess the soil's not very good, so when they cut the trees out, it's just pretty much scrubby and.
Yeah.
It was like
maybe
a
it's too
3 or
hard.
5 acre field back in there too.
Yeah.
If you looked at it for solar.
John, isn't the proposed
Right.
use of the old armory to house Plymouth Highway?
Yes, that's what, you know, we, you know, we're right on the river right now.
State's pushing us to
Right.
get out of there.
And so that's what we would, we're gonna need to move it at some point, and
Makes
it
sense.
would be the perfect situation, you know? So yeah, I think it's, you know, I think with the senator's support, and he's done a little talk with the adjutant, and I think the adjutant can say, whoa, you know, he can come in and say, you know, this is much better for
Yeah.
us. We don't have to do this, we don't have to do that. We have the airport, bam, right across the road. A no-brainer. You know, really, had the state talked to us,
Right.
we could have worked that deal, you know? But I think there's a real good chance that that is gonna happen.
That's exciting.
Yeah,
We're very
that's good.
excited about it.
Good news.
Great.
So we're done?
I swear we can do this in 10 minutes.
Let's do it in 10 minutes.
Okay, all right. So I think if it's okay with everyone, let's just leave what it says in the paragraph about the promising area. I think that it's just a little overshoot of little too much yellow, but I think in the text it covers the points. That's my opinion. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so implementation, we've gone over this so extensively that I really, unless we see, if there are any typos, so we'll go section by section, and then the last thing I want to do is talk about adding one more recommendation about dealing with the Green Street down there. Anything in town university partnership? Anything, and I'll worry about spacing and stuff like that, so don't feel stressed too much about that. Economic development. So many pages. Land use.
I kinda like the way it looks here.
Wow, we got our work cut out for us.
It's all
on that one,
done.
huh?
We
Yeah,
had
yeah,
just
done.
scratched it
Yeah.
right
No, they considered the source.
Yeah.
The reflection of what goes on up here.
Housing, I'm gonna take out housing goal number 1, because it looks like we just have housing. And I'll take out the C, because I think this is just edits from our original, the previous master plan that we're working on updating. Housing, historic resources, natural heritage. Arts and culture. How many of you guys actually read through these with a detailed eye? Because maybe we don't even need to flip through
I
these.
have nothing.
I have nothing.
Okay.
I
good,
figured
all
we
right.
went over these so many times.
Yep,
How about that question? Does anyone have any changes to the implementation
yep,
chapter?
there we go. All right.
So move.
So just the last question, do we want to deal with adding something about the, east of Main Street transportation area? And someone has to give me wording for it.
I think we should, it should be short, and I think one of my reasons is, for one, so we keep an eye on it, but also if the town does decide to do something and at any point applies for any kind of funding, we can show that there's been support, it's been talked about. Because we know it's been talked about, but I don't know to what degree we have it documented. So, at least for right now.
Okay, so I have, it's an ongoing for the time frame. It's the town admin is the lead, planning board, same as the one above.
Okay.
Planning board is on there and the highway department. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. So we want to do something about the, explore options for
Railroad Square.
Railroad Square.
Improved access and connectivity.
Oh, wow, that sounds good.
Is that good? Would you give us money for that?
It's all in the wording.
Right.
In Railroad Square. Awesome. Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Catch, because I think that's a good addition.
Okay, so transportation, anything else in transportation? Transportations, I think, is our biggest chunk of recommendations. And we do have one repeat where there's the very last page where land use policies that are in land use section of implementation table, but also relevant to transportation. Do we want to repeat those?
Can you say that again?
It says land use policies in the transportation section, land use policies, tasks and strategies, and in parentheses, in land use section of implementation table, but relevant to transportation.
Oh, so we just repeated them?
Yeah.
I think we have so many I wouldn't repeat. The answer you wanted?
Yes. I just didn't want to be too,
Slicing and dicing?
well, I just didn't want to be dictating.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to cut things out. I like shortness.
Cut out or cut it.
Okay, I'm gonna do this in the next 2 weeks. I'll have a draft to everyone, and then I think in our work session, the next time, we just need to work out a time frame for how we're gonna roll this out. So,
I would just commend you all, because for you all to have spent the time that you did through all these various versions and to be able to walk through this, which is boring and not a lot of fun, and do it civilly and with a sense of humor, it's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good group of people.
A good board, yeah.
all right, so I'd just like to say also that we did that in about 5 minutes, so.
Yep, less than 10.
Yep. Any other business from anyone?
I don't have any other business, but I just wanted you to know how important it was for me to have that picture of the common in this thing, because I think that's the prettiest thing we've got in town.
Is it in there?
It's
Not
going to
yet,
be.
that's why I said that.
No, it should be in there.
I do want
It should be in there.
Yeah, well, isn't that replacing
send them
the
out tonight.
ice arena?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
I will, when I get, if I don't remember, which is entirely possible because I'm not remembering much these days, I'll remember it when I get to the page because I have it
Right.
circled like 8
Yeah.
times,
And
so.
I'll send them to you tonight.
I had a few of them, and you know what? Just put in what you,
Okay.
whatever looks good to you. I have no preference, just as long as
Send
that
'em-
common's in
Send them
there.
all to Bill.
Okay, all right. The email address I use for this is all, the one they get all the junk to as well, so it's, yeah.
Quickly, I was just gonna say, other business, would it behoove us?
Yeah, I like
Would it
that
be
word.
worthwhile to go walk that Railroad Square as a group at some point, and so we truly understand what is down there?
I like that idea.
And, you know, I'm pretty flexible, I could do it almost any time, but,
You could have a quarterly field trip,
yeah.
where we go like look at some of the issues we're dealing
Yeah,
with, so.
I mean, I think a lot of times we're looking at stuff on paper only, and I know today, and I think we realized it driving down here. Yeah, so,
Well, I think, you know, I mean, when I was on the planning board before, I mean, that's what we would try to do. It was, everybody got the information, got the map. Sometime between then and the hearing, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes we did it as a group, majority of the time we did it individually, you know, do a drive-through.
Right,
see-
you can tell a
see
lot
what's
by
down
doing
there.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's easier to go individually, because then it's not a meeting. That's the only difference.
yeah.
As long as you don't
Then
have to
again,
go on private
it's nice
property,
to have
right.
it post it as a meeting and take the minutes, because the group is generating questions as you go along that may not be apparent to, two people walking through.
Right.
But,
Well, I think it's important that both of those are an option to us, and if we, we can really only decide on a site visit while sitting here as a group, and that's something we could certainly decide on, and I just want to.
is there any other areas? I mean, we could do this all as one, several stops on the night of
Like a
an
bus
off
tour?
meeting.
Like a bus tour?
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to go and
We could get a
No
bus.
bus.
We
Oh,
could
all
get
right,
the-
all
we
right.
could get the
Unless you got
bus from
one
the
there.
senior center. Pick everybody up and we'll do
Talk
a
about,
drive-through.
talk about collaboration across departments.
Okay, so it's just something to think about, that, we need to start visiting these areas more. So,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
again, I keep forgetting to produce some sort of magic notebook which has all these great ideas, so.
That's
don't-
why we have these envelopes.
I don't want to prolong things, but I just want to, there's a lot of stuff in here about the character of the town and, the historic niceness of it, and you're mentioning the town common. And those things aren't specifically addressed in the zoning regulations. And I'm thinking back to the discussion with Ben Olson about meeting the minimum requirements and asking for other things that are more those things, One example I think somebody mentioned when we talked about it before was the height of the facade, like over there. Isn't there a facade that's in keeping with maybe on the Plymouth Ski and Sport? But I think that a lot of the content of the master plan that was culled out of the surveys is that people want to have a quaint, beautiful New England town. And the zoning ordinances don't always address those more subtle aspects where obviously people will have different opinions about what that looks like. So I'm just saying out loud, I don't really know how we do that where they don't exactly line up nicely. And I think about, the aesthetic quality of Meredith, the aesthetic quality of Exeter. They look cohesive. They look,
Like a place when you're driving through, well, I'd like to live here. This
Gives
is
you a sense of place, yeah.
And I think what you're getting at, Bridget, is I think it's incredibly important, and I think there's a giant disconnect between what people want in a town and what they actually make decisions on when there's some new development proposed. Oh, it's a development, we can't say no to that, and our zoning reflects that, I think, versus. And I think all these people gave input on this master plan, and and if we're gonna have to operate very differently if we're gonna make our town look the way people say they want it to look. That we're gonna have to operate differently if we want a town that people say they're gonna be happy living in. And I think that's just and that's a philosophical point, and I think that would be a good work meeting sometime, to have discussions like that.
It'd be helpful to get some sort of idea on, because I think aesthetics are difficult things to regulate legally. So trying to understand what we can do, what can we ask of people? So trying to learn a little more about
Pattern
that. So,
language.
yeah.
Would be an awesome if we could implement that type of thinking, because there are ways to quantify that.
Yes.
There are definitely ways to quantify the things that people like, that they purposely, or I don't know, there's a disconnect is all I can say.
Or the form-based, going back to the form-based
form-based,
versus
yeah.
the use-based.
Form-based code, like when the master plan's in place and we start having discussions about how to implement the master plan and what kind of zoning changes to make, form-based code can be a really useful tool to also simplify things, to make it easier for like Brian or whoever follows Brian to explain to applicants what they have to do and then what options they have. And then there are limitations in New Hampshire for what you can require architecturally without being a historic district, which I don't think most people would want. But there are a lot of things you can do by providing the documentation and the design guidelines. So even in larger cities, like we're doing design guidelines right now for the city of Dover, and it'll probably be advisory, but every applicant will know about it ahead of time. And just like in Wolfboro, where it's optional, people have to explain why they're not going to do it. And so there's a lot of peer pressure just to do it. It's just an easier path forward. And they don't tell you how to do it. They give you options, so they just say, these things are important. These are things we've noticed after inventorying our existing building stock, the types of things that people seem to like and the types of things that make it a Plymouth, sense of place are these things. If you could incorporate these, that would be great.
And it seems to be working that way, at least, maybe not with a will, but it's
Been
turning
lucky.
out. I mean, when we first moved here, for example, there wasn't seating on Main Street.
Right.
And there wasn't, you go down there now, there's all kinds of people doing all kinds of things all the time, outdoors on the sidewalks.
Absolutely.
And, it's, all it took was one.
Right.
And they say, hey, of course it's commerce, so everybody wants a piece of that. But it also, it bolsters the small town feel and the walkable
Yeah,
community.
the village effect.
Correct.
But wouldn't you say that right now, if a building disappeared and there was a hole, we could get another kind of convenience store with parking in front of it?
Yes, there's nothing to
Good.
stop it.
Nothing to stop it, right?
We could talk about curb cuts with it, like the
Right.
like the Tedeschi or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
That's the
I
one.
didn't want to name them, but
Yeah, I'm sorry.
but I think
Something else
there's
before them
that's
anyway,
a
but yeah,
potential
like,
risk
yeah.
that we've been lucky that we haven't.
Yes.
We've lost some of those things actually, replaced them with back of the sidewalk businesses.
And certainly folks would say that the Enterprise Center isn't in keeping with the
Right.
downtown.
Right.
Yet, it is in keeping with the proto-industrial look of PSU.
Right.
Which is kind of, you got the Draper Manor building across
Yeah.
the street. So it's similar enough.
Yep.
Though, if you look from that point south, it doesn't blend at all.
Right.
But that was just a matter of, you're right, Steve. How do you get from, this is kind of what we want, to this is what you should do, when somebody comes in and says, I want to do this?
How about what you need? I think Bridget brought up a great point recently when we were talking about convenience stores. We have there's no need for another convenience store. The reason those things come in is because that's their business model. They don't care if there's like a void to fill.
Right.
They have to compete in a certain way, and they compete on volume. So, their operating procedures to super saturate areas and then put other people out of business, close. But in the meantime, towns end up with way more little box convenience stores than they possibly need or want.
That's so hard to regulate.
And there's a lot of our year that isn't, where half the population love the convenience store,
Yeah. One of our goals is locally owned
That's why they call
businesses.
them convenience.
Right, but you can't.
I call them beer stores.
You can
Cut right to
have
the chase.
requirements for the buildings, but you can't say, sorry, McDonald's, you can't be on Main Street.
Right.
Yeah.
You could say you can be on Main Street with a pedestrian entrance on the back of the sidewalk and no parking.
A different colored sign or,
Right.
I think it's got to happen on the back end.
There's
where
a
you've gotta
little bit in the
support
zoning ordinance
things that are
already.
going to support local businesses. So,
As far as signage in the downtown area.
Right.
They want to get away from the bubble plastic stuff, so the things that you see now are the grandfathered signs. But anybody new has to come in. And there was a big push, like the signage that we have out here at Marvel did for Town Hall and several other of the buildings across the street, to try and unify everything like that.
Yep.
But it's piecemeal, and it all depends on how much the merchants can afford to do that, while they're busy struggling to stay open.
And some of the piecemeal nature is also it's hard to articulate, but that's also some of what gives it the character.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
not perfect.
Definitely.
Right.
You look at Norman Rockwell and
Yeah.
all those old pictures.
Right.
I mean, they were not consistent and
Right.
cookie cutter. They represented, the owner's feelings, what he wanted to
Makes
put
it
out there
interesting.
for people.
Right. It can be tasteful, but different.
Yeah, just interesting, something
A
that's
little
not.
uniqueness,
Yeah.
This is, yeah.
Case in point is the garage door at Fat Fish.
That's great.
I know.
It's
Isn't it
amazing.
nice?
Why didn't anybody think of that before?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
It's
is
aw-
nice.
That's awesome.
It
You'll
is,
see
it
I
really
bet you'll
is.
see it replicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
think-
that's part of the thing. So suddenly, we were talking about, you could sit outside if you have coffee. Now you have outdoor dining down there. And the next restaurant to be opened in the same block will have a component for outdoor dining as well.
Okay.
And people are eating that up.
They are.
People are loving that.
They really are.
I do, I like it.
Yeah.
I love it.
You going there right now?
Only there was- if only there was-
Right.
It's like we get summer, we don't want to be inside. We want to do everything outside, so it's great.
I think it's great that we're talking about all this stuff.
I think so too. I think, yeah.
I think, yeah, and I mean,
job.
we've been, finished our tasks for the day and we're still talking about stuff, so it's great. However.
All of a sudden, we start to realize, wait a minute, we could be here all night. But I do think we should dedicate, and not to drag this out, but I think that's an important thing, to have conversations like this as a planning board.
Yeah, I think it will be great because we've already discussed meeting jointly with the zoning board, and that will be a good topic of conversation there.
Once this is put to bed, suddenly you have an extra work session every month with nothing on the agenda.
I think, actually, we're not putting it to bed, we're gonna be waking it up.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't plan to cancel work sessions just because we don't have anything on. I mean, I think the idea is I'd like to figure out some strategic planning as a board, like what's our annual schedule gonna be? Dealing with the, and our first order of business is gonna be dealing with zoning ordinances updates. Because as soon as we get this thing done and wake it up, then we gotta start thinking about that. So, so coming up with some strategic planning for us as a board and what we want to talk about and how we're gonna deal with addressing each of the things in the master plan.
Six or 7 years ago, we had some situations where we were canceling the work session, and it was brought up and advised that there's always something that we can look at. Just because there's nothing there, it's always changing, and we have to look at it, we have to protect it, and do the things we can. And sometimes when you have nothing else planned, just like the last 15 minutes, the conversation and the way it went, there's so much information going out and different thoughts and ideas that you can capitalize on.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna try and get together a notebook that'll be sort of our wish list, that's gonna be kind of just crazy ideas we're throwing out there, and it'll maybe just live with the board, and so we can just throw those ideas out there, and then they're in a place that we know, because otherwise we talk about a lot of things, but then I'm sure that a lot of these things will come back, but I can't remember half the good ideas we've had.
Our crazy idea book.
Yeah.
I kind of like the dense minutes because I have felt in the past it
And when you
wasn't
use
enough
the
to remind me of what all transpired.
She'll have her work cut out this week.
Yeah.
Before we adjourn, we have no public comment, so my discretion says we don't need to open up a public hearing or public comments right now. But I do want to remind everyone that since our work session coming up beginning of August, I want to regularly check in with everybody who's on other boards. So if anyone, just be thinking about things to update us on what you're working on separately. And maybe we'll do it in a sort of methodical way so we can look at those other boards that we don't have representation on, and maybe we can assign a liaison to those other boards so we can get updates. So, yeah. It might be nothing, but, I mean, there's nothing to update on, but we got a great one from you this evening as well, so. But,
Right.
And
Yeah.
when the application periods close, I try and inform both boards what's on tap for either one.
Yep.
Because sometimes the business here spills over to the ZBA and vice versa, obviously. But, it's just kind of this is what's going on idea.
I think I'm on vacation next meeting, beginning of August, right?
All right.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Rebecca's always got to work around. Come on, guys.
I'll second that.
I had to do it way less tonight.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Oh,
And
I've
we're
been
done?
quick in response.
Well, the chairs flew back. I'm going to take it that was a unanimous vote upon.